Savitri is moving through the inner countries in search of her soul. She has divined or felt that it's at the very center and core of her being. And she has to move towards it through the physical body. And the first thing that she encountered was the level of the senses. And the senses, they want to be free of the mind. They want to have the right just to enjoy themselves. But Sri Aurobindo says, without mind, there can't be any real delight. And then there's a tremendous, powerful rush of feelings. The senses somehow connect the purely physical body with the life being. And it's this chakra down here. Then there's the level of emotions and feelings, and there this rush of powerful life force comes in like a dragon, a giant head of life, and it rushes through her being like a river in flood, bursting over its banks, and she feels herself as if she's isolated on a little island of quiet in the midst of that flood. But then the flood ebbs away, and we saw that she came to another realm where the life force is under the control of the mind. Life can't just indulge its fancies freely. It's being controlled by mind. So that's what we're reading now. I'm reading on from line 279. Reality's poise and reason's symmetry were set in its place, sentineled by marshaled facts. They gave to the soul for throne a bench of law, for kingdom a small world of rule and line. The age's wisdom shriveled to scoliast lines, shrank patterned into a copybook device. The Spirit's almighty freedom was not here. A schoolman mind had captured life's large space, but chose to live in bare and paltry rooms, parked off from the too vast, dangerous universe, fearing to lose its soul in the infinite. Even the idea's ample sweep was cut into a system, chained to fixed pillars of thought, or riveted to matter's solid ground. Or else the soul was lost in its own heights, obeying the ideal's high-browed law, thought based a throne on unsubstantial air, disdaining earth's flat triviality. It barred reality out to live in its dreams. Or all stepped into a systemed universe. Life's empire was a managed continent, its thoughts an army ranked and disciplined. Uniformed, they kept the logic of their fixed place at the bidding of the trained centurion mind. Or each stepped into its station like a star, or marched through fixed and constellated heavens, or kept its feudal rank among its peers in the sky's unchanging cosmic hierarchy. Or like a high-bred maiden with chaste eyes, forbidden to walk unveiled the public ways, she must in close, secluded chambers move. Her feeling in cloisters live, or gardened paths. Life was consigned to a safe, level path. It dared not tempt the great and difficult heights, or climb to be neighbor to a lonely star, or skirt the danger of the precipice, or tempt the foam-curled breaker's perilous laugh. Adventure's lyrist, danger's amateur. Or into her chamber call some flaming god, or leave the world's bounds, and where no limits are, meet with the heart's passion, the adorable, or set the world ablaze with the inner fire. A chastened epithet in the prose of life, she must fill with color just her sanctioned space, not break out of the cabin of the idea, nor trespass into rhythms too high or vast. Dhanalakshmi.
Reality's pause and reason's symmetry were set in its place, sentineled by martial facts. They gave to the soul, for throne a bench of law, for kingdom a small world of rule and land. The age's wisdom shriveled to squalliest lines, shrank patterned into a copybook device.
Yeah. So line 280 says, in its place. It means in the place of, instead of imagination, which was the last thing that we read about last time. It says that life's power of imagination was banished. So instead, there is reality's poise, facts, reason's symmetry, everything balanced according to the order that the reason gives. They are set in place of the wild and free imagination. And that place is sentineled. There are guards around it. These are marshaled facts. These are the facts. And you have to stay within these limits. So these facts, marshaled. Marshaled means arranged like soldiers. In order. So reality's poise and reason's symmetry give to the soul for throne a bench of law. The soul is the master and it has to sit on a throne, but the throne that they give it is like a judge's seat. The judges sit on the bench, no? And they rule everything. Mind and life are the servants of the soul. But until the soul really has asserted its mastery, it does what life and mind tell it to do. So here the thought is controlling life, and so that restricts the freedom and greatness of the soul. It gives the soul as its throne a bench of law. It has to follow the laws. It's not, and give out the laws, express the laws. It should be a ruler of a great kingdom, but they give it a small world of rules and lines. It has to be like this, limiting lines. The age's wisdom, all the wonderful spiritual discoveries, or even mental discoveries that have been made, the wisdom of the ages, by this scholiast mind, get shriveled. Shriveled is what happens to plants when they don't get any water. They dry up and become brown and lose all their beauty. So those wonderful trees or wonderful flowers of wisdom of the ages, they don't find any nourishment in that atmosphere. They just dry up. And they shrank into a copybook device. I don't know whether any of you had to do this kind of thing when you were at school, but when we were learning handwriting, they gave us beautiful sayings from great men that we had to copy, but actually really we were only supposed to be interested in the beautiful rounds and the proper lines and all that. There was not much opportunity to absorb the age's wisdom. So that's what this mind does. It shrinks down these things just to tags that you can copy when you're learning to do handwriting. So in this realm where she is now, well, that's the next thing, Martin. No, sorry, Vijaya.
The Spirit's almighty freedom was not here. A schoolman's mind had captured life's large space, but chose to live in bare and paltry rooms, parked off from the too fast, dangerous universe, fearing to lose its soul in the infinity.
In the infinite. Full stop. Thank you. So we had this word scholiast. No? It's a person who's very precise about scholarly things, but not in a very illumined way, in a way of routine and rote and, a scholiast. So that scholiast thinking, that shrivels the life out of the wisdom. And here he says a schoolman mind. It has a scholastic, you see, is more neutral. This is a negative word, scholiast. It's somebody who just by rote, without real understanding, repeats all that he's learned. And he thinks he's a great scholar, but he's not a great scholar. He's real scholarship means understanding and appreciating. No? He's a scholiast. He's shriveled everything up. And it's similar with a schoolman. It's one of these things that happens to school masters. if they have to always teach very young children, they lose the higher appreciation of what they have to teach. It becomes very narrow. No? So this schoolman mind has captured the large space of life, but it doesn't take advantage of that large space of life. It chooses to live in rooms, just a few rooms, that are bare. They don't have much furniture in it, no beautiful decorations, nothing like that. Paltry rooms, small, mean, poor rooms, by choice. And those rooms are parked off from the too vast, dangerous universe. Last week we had this parked, no? That life was parked. Life dwelt parked in an armed tranquility. Parks can be very beautiful places, but they are enclosed spaces. The old rulers, they used to have their deer parks, no? Which were very nice to look at, and of course beautiful to see the deer, but the deer were just there to be hunted easily. They were not free. So parked off, fenced in, away, separated from, protected from the too vast, dangerous universe. But that's because, this happens because that schoolman mind is afraid to lose itself in the infinite. So it makes a safe little place for itself, very bare and limited. Suresh.
Even the ideas, unlike sweep, must have into a system chained to fixed pillars of thought, pivot to matter's solid ground.
Let's pause there. The idea with a capital I. This is the most creative function of mind, to form ideas, high concepts, which can then perhaps be realized. It's a creative function of mind. And normally it has an ample sweep, a very wide scope and range in which our thought can form ideas and concepts in a very large, free way. But in this realm that Savitri has come now to, of the little mind, the limited mind, even the idea, what you can think about, what you can conceive, is cut into a system. It's like this, and you have to fit in with the system. It's chained. The idea, instead of the creative thought, instead of being able to move freely, it's got a chain. It's chained to fixed pillars of thought. Or even riveted to matter's solid ground. A rivet, you know, it's when you put when you fasten two pieces of metal together by a rivet so that they can't move, that they are firmly fixed together. So this is then the idea is riveted to matter. It's not allowed to move freely. It always has to be dominated by the physical facts. Berber.
Or else the soul was lost in its own heights, obeying the ideal's high broad law, thought-based throne on unsubstantial air. Disdaining earth's fled to reality. It bared reality out to live in its dreams.
Yes. So this is just the opposite thing. Either the thought is riveted to matter, or else, in individual cases, it takes off and lives in its dreams and it doesn't take any notice of the earth's reality. It thinks, oh, that is so flat, it's so trivial and ordinary. No? It disdains that, it feels contempt for that. So it obeys only the ideal's high-browed law, the way things should be. And it bases its throne not on any firm basis, but on insubstantial air. Now that's where it sits. It barred reality out. It doesn't allow reality to interfere with its high dreams. It barred reality out to live in its dreams. Our mind can do this also. It's another kind of limitation, which is not interested in facts. Those lovely golden dreams are much more interesting. Bhavana.
All stepped into a systemed universe. Life's empire was a managed continent. Its thoughts and army ranked and disciplined. Uniform, they kept the logic of the fixed play at the bidding of the trained centurion mind.
Yes. The mind sometimes can think that it's understood everything, and it has everything that can possibly happen and every idea that can come. It has a place for it, fits things into its place. A systemed universe. So life and mind, everything stepped into this universe that has been arranged in a system by the mind. So then the empire which life should rule, it's a managed continent. It may be a big, solid mass, but everything is very well managed, arranged in its place. So its thoughts then are like an army of thoughts ranked. In an army there are different ranks, from the private to the corporal to the lieutenant and so on, different ranks. So each thought has its place, its rank. And each of them is disciplined. They all have to follow the discipline of this managed continent. They are uniformed. Soldiers, of course, wear a uniform, but it also means, uniform means they're all the same. So they're made the same. And each of them keeps the logic. They have to follow the reason of their own fixed place, and they are commanded by the trained centurion mind. Centurion was a rank in the Roman army, the ancient Roman army. It was an officer who was in charge of 100 soldiers, a centurion. So there's this orderly, disciplined officer mind telling every thought where it has to go. But there are other possibilities as well. Gumsun.
Or it just tapped into its station like a star, or marched through kids and constellated the heavens, or kept its figure rank among its peers in the sky's unchanging cosmic hierarchy.
Yes. So each thought, stepped into its station. Your station is where you stand. So your position, like a star. There are some fixed stars that don't seem to move. Yeah. So it goes into its place and it stays there. Or maybe it marches, it moves with the movement of the heavens through fixed and constellated heavens. A constellation is a group of, or what we see as a group of stars. They are not necessarily close to each other in space, but from our point of view, they form a kind of grouping, and we have given names to many of those constellations. A constellation, stella is the word in Latin for a star. So constellation, it's stars coming together, a group of stars. So those constellations move around the sky, the night sky, always in the same relationship. Well, that's why we can give them names. So each of the stars is like that. It's in its own constellation. Or another way of thinking about that is that each thought keeps its feudal rank among its peers. Feudal system is a system of government, a hierarchical system of government, where there's the king at the top, and then the nobles, each of them has their estates, and then they will have sub-nobles and knights, and then there will be the peasants who live on the estates and have to work for the knights. So it's the same idea that every thought has its place in a hierarchy, an orderly hierarchy. So if he's thinking about stars, as if there are ranks of stars. There are big important stars, and there are less important stars and less important stars. So each of them keeps its feudal rank in the... Your peers are your equals, the people who have the same rank as yourself. Nowadays we speak about children, peer groups, no? The other kids of the same age, they are the peers, and what the peers do, it's a very strong influence on each individual child. So it's something like that. The sky is unchanging cosmic hierarchy. So we can see that the qualities of this mind which she's experiencing now, it's order, discipline, fixed positions, fixed roles. There's not much free movement. So another way of expressing that comes in the next sentence, Gangalakshmi.
Like red maiden with the chaste eyes, forbidden the walk and well the public ways. She must in close, secure chambers move, her feeling in the clusters lead of garden paths.
Yes, so this is about life. Life is parked off, and here he says she has to live like a high-bred maiden, a young woman just becoming up to marriageable age from a high-ranking family. She's been very well educated, and she knows how to behave in a very modest, chaste way. She mustn't go around smiling and looking and flirting with everybody. She has to be very modest and restrained. She's not allowed to go out and walk in the streets, in the public ways, without a veil. She always will have a companion with her. She'll walk veiled. No? She has to live in secluded chambers, protective, closed rooms, close, secluded chambers, quite restricted. And her feelings, she has to live out in cloisters. A cloister is the inner courtyard of a monastery. And those high-bred maidens, of course, they often would be sent to a nunnery, a monastery for women, for their education. So there, everything has to be kept very calm and quiet and proper, and restricted. Or if she's not in those cloisters, at least it's a garden. She can't go beyond her garden. She's restricted to these gardened paths. Mahalingam.
Life was consigned to a safe, level path. It dared not tempt the great and difficult heights, or climb to the neighbor to a lonely star, skirt the danger of the precipice, or tempt the foam-curled breakers, perilous law. Adventurous lyrics, dangerous amateur, or into a chamber called some flaming god, or leave the world's bounds, and where no limits or meet with the heart's passion, the adorable, or set the world ablaze to the inner fire.
So, under the control of this limiting mind, life was consigned, told to keep to a safe, level path. She's not allowed to go beyond that. So she doesn't dare to try climbing mountains, great and difficult heights. That's not allowed. Or going even further, climbing to be neighbor to a lonely star. The free life will do that. It will try to become a star in heaven. No? And another thing that it will love to do is to skirt the danger of the precipice, to have dangerous experiences, challenging experiences. A precipice is a very steep cliff, and if you go too near to the edge, it's dangerous. It may crumble, you may fall. No? But still, adventurous people exactly like to do those kind of things. But that kind of life is not allowed by this very limiting, narrowing mind. The free life would love to swim in the ocean, even when there are big waves. Tempt here means try. The breakers, they're big waves that break with a lot of force onto the beach. So that's like a laughter of the wonderful sea, you know, but it's dangerous, of course. That those breakers are covered with foam, the bubbles that come as they break on the sand. Life can't take up these adventures. In her freedom, life would be adventure's lyrist, singing the song of delight at adventure, enjoying adventure. Danger's amateur. An amateur, in the way that we use it in our ordinary speech, it means somebody who does something just because they enjoy doing it. You can have amateur tennis players. They're not like professional tennis players who have to make their living with it. There are amateur actors who do it just for fun. No? The origin of the word means somebody who loves something, a lover. No? So life is the amateur. She enjoys experiencing danger of many different kinds. And then there's a line which reminds us of our Indian mythology. Or into her chamber call some flaming god. It reminds us of the story in the Mahabharata about the mother of the Pandavas, Kunti, when she was still a high-bred maiden, when she was a princess, not very old, in her father's house. Some great very bad-tempered rishi came to stay. And her father hoped that that rishi would not curse anybody. So he asked Kunti, his little daughter, to take care of that rishi. And she took care of him so nicely. He was so pleased with her that when he was going away, he gave her a mantra. He said, with this mantra, you can call any god and he will give you a child. So that little girl, she couldn't resist trying it out. And who did she invite? She invited the sun god. And then he gave her a child, and what was she to do with it? He told her, he said, the God's children, they're born in one night and they're fully developed, and so she gives birth to Karna, and she puts him in a basket and sends him off down the river. And so throughout the whole story, nobody knows that this great warrior is really the eldest of the 5 brothers, who are all also born of gods. So then what are the other possibilities? What life would like to do is to leave the limits of the world, where no limits are. Meet with the heart's passion, the adorable. I thought of Mirabai, who was a high-bred maiden, but she conceived this passion for Sri Krishna. And then she didn't care anymore about being a high-bred maiden and doing what her royal family wanted her to do. Or set the world ablaze with the inner fire. These are possibilities that the life force gives to us if it is free and pure. So if we control it too much by the mind, the soul loses these possibilities. But still, maybe it's a stage everybody has to go through, is disciplining the vital. Uma, will you read?
Jason depicted in the photos of life, she must feel with courageous
Sanctioned.
space, not break out of the craving of the idea, not trespass into rhythms to hide or mask.
Yes. So we are reading poetry in which Sri Aurobindo uses many epithets, words that are used, descriptive words, adjectives. But there's another kind of literature which is not poetry, but prose. It isn't written in these short rhythmic lines like this is. It's more, well, The Life Divine is prose, or Sri Aurobindo's many other books. And there are rules about writing good prose. Of course, there are different kinds of rules, different schools of thought about it. But there are people who believe that when we are writing prose, we shouldn't use too many adjectives, epithets. And when we use them, they should be chastened. They shouldn't be too colorful or too evocative. That's all right in prose or in verse. But in prose, we should be more serious. Perhaps that's the word. So he says, life is supposed to be like that. She has to be like an adjective which is well chosen, pure, not too colorful, no? She has to fill just with a little bit of color, only just her sanctioned space, the little small space that she's allowed, no? She shouldn't break out of the cabin, the small house of the idea. And she shouldn't trespass. Trespass means going somewhere where you're not supposed to go. No? So she shouldn't burst out into rhythms too high or vast. In poetry, you can have wonderful, powerful, evocative rhythms. No? But in prose, particularly at one time, it was thought that this was not good style. Sri Aurobindo didn't care about that at all, even when he was at university. Once he wrote a letter to his father that he'd indulged his oriental bent to the fullest. No, he thought that he would get criticized for it, but in fact his tutor appreciated his unchastened prose, full of evocative words and high, vast rhythms. Joel.
Even when it soared into ideal air, thought's flight lost not itself in heaven's blue. It drew upon the skies a patterned flower of disciplined beauty and almond light.
So even when thought rose high, right, flying up like a great bird into the ideal area, the realm, one of the very highest realms of thought, the realm of the ideal, it didn't lose itself. It didn't lose itself in that blue heaven. Instead, it used it as a background to draw or depict upon the skies a patterned flower. Of disciplined beauty and harmonic light. There's nothing extravagant about that flower, that image which it draws. It's perhaps just got 5 petals and a little red, yellow in the middle, something like that. So I think we should stop there today. So this is some realm in our being where the life force is not free. It's under the domination of a narrow, limiting mental formation. The things that we are taught are correct and proper. So we'll go back to line 279. Reality's poise and reason's symmetry were set in its place, sentinelled by marshalled facts. They gave to the soul for throne a bench of law, for kingdom a small world of rule and line. The age's wisdom, shrivelled to scoliast lines, shrank patterned into a copybook device. The Spirit's almighty freedom was not here. A schoolman mind had captured life's large space, but chose to live in bare and paltry rooms, parked off from the too vast, dangerous universe, fearing to lose its soul in the infinite. Even the idea's ample sweep was cut into a system, chained to fixed pillars of thought, or riveted to matter's solid ground. or else the soul was lost in its own heights. Obeying the ideal's high-browed law, thought based a throne on unsubstantial air, disdaining earth's flat triviality. It barred reality out to live in its dreams. Or all stepped into a systemed universe. Life's empire was a managed continent, its thoughts an army ranked and disciplined. Uniformed they kept the logic of their fixed place at the bidding of the trained centurion mind. Or each stepped into its station like a star, or marched through fixed and constellated heavens, or kept its feudal rank among its peers in the sky's unchanging cosmic hierarchy. Or like a high-bred maiden with chaste eyes, forbidden to walk unveiled the public ways, she must in close secluded chambers move, her feeling in cloisters live or gardened paths. Life was consigned to a safe, level path. It dared not tempt the great and difficult heights, or climb to be neighbour to a lonely star, or skirt the danger of the precipice, or tempt the foam-curled breakers' perilous laugh, adventure's lyrist, danger's amateur, or into her chamber call some flaming god, or leave the world's bounds, and where no limits are, meet with the heart's passion, the adorable, or set the world ablaze with the inner fire. A chastened epithet in the prose of life, she must fill with colour just her sanctioned space, not break out of the cabin of the idea, nor trespass into rhythms too high or vast. Even when it soared into ideal air, thought's flight lost not itself in heaven's blue. It drew upon the skies a patterned flower of disciplined beauty and harmonic light.